Hi, Tam here. I'd like to talk about the correlation between confinement and blood clots. Most doctors will tell you that since these lockdowns have been implemented around the world, there's been an increase in the number of patients coming to the ER with blood clots, DVTs specifically. In certain states, in certain countries, people are not even allowed to go out and gym or run or cycle or stuff like that, And even when they are allowed to do so, the motivation to do it might not be there. You're not working, your entire routine changes. And so for a lot of people, people are just at home, they don't go out, they don't exercise, they don't run, they don't do any cardio. And the only movement they do in the house is from the bed to the TV, to the fridge. It's difficult, but that's a problem now because of this lack of movement, people are more prone to get blood clots, to get DVTs. So what are DVTs? There's different types of blood clots. I want to talk specifically about DVTs because that's what we doctors are seeing more often in these times of lockdowns, and quarantine and isolation and all that stuff, So what are blood clots? What are DVTs? You've got your heart and you've got circulation going from your heart to your organs and from your organs back to your heart via the lungs. Your arteries are the vessels used for the oxygenated blood to go to your organs, and your veins are the blood vessels used for the deoxygenated blood to return from your organs back to your lungs and heart. If you get a clot in your arteries and you've got a limb that is completely blocked off from arterial supply, it's called the threatened limb. It's a medical emergency. One has to act very fast. If you've got a clot in your coronary arteries in your heart, as you can imagine, you will get a heart attack. It's an emergency. The occlusion must be removed as soon as possible. A stent, a bypass, there must be a way to reopen or bypass that occlusion. So that's the situation with arterial clots. We are talking about DVTs, right? Deep venous thrombosis. A thrombosis is basically a clot, right? It's an amalgamation, it's a coagulation of static blood that causes a clot and a venous obstruction. Deep venous thrombosis, DVT. Now the cause of DVT is not scientifically well elaborated, So we talk about the major theory of DVT, and that's called Virchow's triad. Virchow? Virchow's triad. So what is Virchow's triad? Virchow's triad states that DVT is caused by 1, let me remember Virchow's triad. So 1, stasis of the blood, meaning the blood circulation slows, goes into a stasis, and that creates a clot. 2, damage to the blood vessels carrying the blood, the walls of the blood vessels. And 3, a change in the constituents of the blood. And that could be something that you can't control. It could be an inherited condition or, things like that. A coagulation factor problem, So these are the 3 components of Virchow's triad. Now, let's talk about confinement, lockdowns, quarantine, isolation. Because you stay home, because you stay in front of your TV, binging on Netflix or whatever stuff you watch all the time, because you're not moving so much, because your commute from your house to your place of work is 0 meters if you're not an essential worker, because you don't exercise like you used to, and perhaps you don't exercise at all, you don't even walk around, you know. Because of all of that, you are prone to have stasis of your blood. Now, on top of that, there is some risk factors. So risk factors being obese, that's a big risk factor. Immobilization is perhaps the number one risk factor. You know, you're bedridden, you may be in hospital, you know, you had surgery, you know, you had a hip fracture, or you're in ICU, or, you know, you're in a situation where you're not mobile. So that's why, you know, usually when you see patients in ICU, they have to be turned from one side to the other side every few hours to prevent pressure sores, but also to help prevent DVTs, clots and stuff like that, you know. And also, you know, they get prophylactic enoxaparin, which is heparin, basically, you know. Over the age of 65, coagulation diseases, pregnancy, women on oral contraceptives, smoking. I think the jury is still out whether smoking increases your chance of DVTs or not. I can't really comment on that, you know. So these are the most common risk factors, you know. But let's talk about being on lockdown and not exercising, you know. Because you're not exercising, because you stay in the same spot the entire day, because there is a lack of mobility, you are prone to getting a DVT. And so what should you do? What are the symptoms of a DVT? You know, how would you know that you have a DVT or a possible DVT and you need to go to hospital? You know, there's 3 things that you have to look out for. Number 1 is pain in your lower legs. You can have a DVT in your upper legs as well, but most commonly, you know, you will get a DVT in the lower extremities. You know, so pain in your calf muscle, maybe your right calf muscle or your left calf muscle. It's usually unilateral, meaning only the one leg is affected. But I have seen and I have treated patients who had bilateral DVTs. So, you wake up in the morning and you've got pain in your calf muscle, and you think you've got a cramp. You know, so you think, it's just a cramp, maybe, you know, because I'm not moving much. Fine. But now, not only you've got pain in your calf muscle, but during the day you now notice that your one calf is swollen as compared to the other one. You see, now that's a problem. And number 3, when you touch your calf, it's hot as compared to the other calf. So you've got pain, swelling, and an increase in your skin temperature on the affected limb. If you get that, you need to get to hospital so we can do a Doppler study on you, see if you have a clot, and if you do have a clot, treat you. So how do you prevent this situation? The best way to prevent that is that even though we are on lockdown, we must force ourselves to stay active. Stay active, keep exercising, do some push-ups in the morning, you know, do some legs exercises in the morning, you know. If you have a rope, a bit of rope skipping, move, walk. Whenever you can, even if it's just around the house, walk a little bit. If you have to go and buy some groceries and it's not too far away, walk there and then walk to come back. If you live in a building, take the stairs, assuming that, you know, you don't have to take 50 floors down or something like that. But, you know, take the stairs when you can and then take the elevator when you're tired. But, you know, try and keep active. As long as you stay active, you will minimize your risk of getting a blood clot. On top of that, if you have some risk factors, if you are obese, if you have a previous history of DVT, if you are on oral contraceptives, if you find yourself immobilized most of the time, I mean by choice, and you know you end up spending your day in your sofa there, or you're not really moving and you find it difficult to exercise. On top of that, if you fall in these categories, my suggestion to you is that take a baby aspirin a day. If you're not allergic to aspirin, if you do not have a fever, if you have no symptoms of influenza, the flu, or the common cold, or COVID-19, if there's no contraindication from your doctor to take aspirin, then if all these criteria have been excluded, take a baby aspirin, 81 milligrams of aspirin a day while you're in confinement. That will make a difference, if you really can't exercise. I mean, that would help. But remember, if you decide to take aspirin, make sure that you're not allergic to aspirin, you've had it before. Make sure that there's no contraindication to aspirin. Make sure that you don't have a fever. Make sure that you don't have any symptoms of influenza, common cold, stuff like that. And make sure that you don't have liver disease. Make sure that you don't have stomach ulcers, or stomach pain after eating, peptic ulcers, stuff like that. That's very important. If you don't have any of those, take one aspirin a day, 81 milligrams a day. That's going to help you out to prevent Dvt, the formation of black clots because of lack of mobility, Well, I hope this helps. Cheers.
MickeyMontz.